Hello, everybody, and welcome to Failcast FM, the F1News podcast, with a bit of mediocre driving thrown into the mix. My name is Simon, and as always, alongside me, with his pearls of wisdom from across the pond, it is Mr. Definitely Zero. How are you doing, Esteban?
Buenos noches, amigo. Midweek episode, exciting, bit of a change.
It is. I'm thrown off. I feel like I'm in weekend mood.
Yeah, but it's good that we've kept on track. I mean, not on the track, probably, but
No.
like on schedule track. Interesting beverage news as well, since we usually open with a bit of beverage news. Today's beverage is, and you're gonna like this, Red Bull Purple Edition.
Ooh, what flavour does that contain?
I believe it's pronounced acai berry. I don't know. It's A C with a tail, AI. So I presume it's acai. I don't know, but it's so delicious that I ended up ordering a crate of it, and I've got like 16 in my fridge.
Oh wow!
It's phenomenal.
Amazing.
I didn't get paid to say that because Red Bull don't know who I am.
They will do by the time this series goes global.
Yeah. Good positioning for the arseholes.
It is.
Both cheeks there, riding high in the top six.
Sandwiching a Bottas.
Bottas.
Yeah.
It's
It writes
Bottas
itself.
with two half cheeks. Every year it comes together. It's beautiful. We are. He's the Bottas hole between the half cheeks. I can't get over that. Fucking brilliant.
That's our own version of Buck Roper.
Yeah. I remember that. Buck Roper. Phenomenal. 105 points for you, sir, you cheeky little monkey.
I know.
And the gap between us now is reduced, Ed, to a mere 14.
You had a wonderful Hungary, and I had a monstrosity, so you done quite well.
Well, I've been crashing a lot this year, which is unlike me. If you go back to the previous seasons, I was not big on the crashes. I just was slow. But this year, I seem to be relatively feisty, but also a bit crashy. And the same problems I've had with setup at Hungary and where was it where I was really making a dog's dinner of it? The one before Hungary. Was it Silverstone?
Yeah. Because we was tail happy there, weren't we?
Yeah. I have the same setup problems here. That either I have grip and I'm slow, or I'm capable of a really fast lap time, but I nearly die every time. And obviously we'll go for option B because that provides the greatest level of entertainment.
Absolutely.
Now, let's skip to that. Now, I'm going to load my setup from career mode, where I didn't actually do too badly here in career mode, but historically it's not a particularly great track for me. And then I'm going to kick straight into the episode. It's been a bit of we're in the news wilderness again a little bit.
We are. We'll keep strafing through though. Yeah,
apart from the car launch announcements, which. It's just. I mean, I'm excited about all the cars because obviously, that's one of the highlights of the year for me. But I'm not expecting any sort of radical changes except for McLaren. And I forgot to mention this before we do in our pre-show discussion.
At Spa. This is a good evening.
Welcome, Rhino. Thank you. Sorry, Rhino was just saying Jack Daniels and Coke and Failcast at Spa. What a great evening.
Hello there, mate. I hope you're well. I hope we can smash things up appropriately for you. I heard rumour, and I haven't had a chance to check this myself, but apparently Gulf Oil are now something to do with McLaren. And there was rumour that possibly, because they were teasing a new look, right?
Yes.
That they may be in the Gulf colours, which is papaya orange, obviously.
Yeah.
With the light blue.
They've always been quite striking because they remind me of 1970 garish livery cars, but they are always striking, aren't they? Whether
They
they're
are.
nice or not, I don't know.
I have to say, I quite like the look of the idea of that, but at the same time, they've teased pictures of their team wear, and it's white with like that bizarre metallic logo design. And I checked the McLaren website the other day, and I'm not that most people will check their website very often, but they have changed their branding. So it's now a all black McLaren logo, like text and speed mark, against a white background.
Oh.
So I really don't know what to make of it, because they've both sort of teased there's going to be some orange on show, but at the same time they've said, oh, it's a brand new fresh look and we've got a new sponsor and everything. And then it's sort of sending out a very conflicting message. And it was pointed out to me quite correctly, actually, that if you look at McLaren's team wear over the last few seasons, they have got into a disturbing trend of having team wear that looks nothing like the car.
Yeah, because was it last year or the year before where they went for that weird thing where it looked like they tried to print their own, but it hadn't all lined up? It was awful.
Yeah, I've got that shirt, actually. The black stripes on white.
Yeah, but where they fade off, but then they don't join up, and it just looks like someone's printer's run dry halfway through.
Yeah. The zebra motif. Let's call it. Yeah.
Generously.
The beer goggle zebra motif. Yeah, they did. And then last year's shirts were just grey and horrible. I actually have that shirt as well. Oh, I've completely balls this lap.
You glutton for punishment, you.
Yeah, and that shirt, it can look quite good, but it was very disappointing not to see it branded the same as the car. But also, it's incredibly uncomfortable. It's really, really tight under the arms, and I can't imagine mechanics working comfortably wearing one, because it's form-fitting to some degree, and given that to some degree, sexism is going to come up as something of a topic in the news later on. I just want to say that for good or ill, I think society, for a very good reason, has chosen traditionally not to apply form-fitting fashion standards to men, because it's not pretty. And whenever I wear that McLaren shirt, I just look at it and think, you fat bastard. I just see breasts. My own breasts. So I'm just hopeful that this year they come up with something comfortable to wear. And actually, I'm going to derail us already for a moment, because we didn't do a Christmas special, did we? And since we're nudging the topic of teamwear, as long-term viewers will know, each year I buy 1 or 2 pieces of team memorabilia, so you don't have to, and report back on my findings. And for the last few years, consistently, bottom of the pile has been Sauber.
Yes.
And with very good reason, because back in 13, 14 and 15, the team had no sponsors, but did have official team wear. And it was 12, 13 and 14. They really didn't have any sponsors apart from NEC briefly. But they did have official team wear, and it was hugely overpriced, massively so. Then they got a few more sponsors, 15, and decided to make all their team wear at Spreadshirt, and that, I'm not joking, that actually, if you went to the Sauber team shop in that season, the first season of the blue and yellow car, you were directed to a Spreadshirt shop, and they were selling like cheap pillow covers with the logo on, and like bibs for babies and stuff, and it was horrific. It was embarrassing.
Hello, cafe.
And they were still overpriced. Then last year they moved on to they got an official sportswear partner, which they took from Manor, and actually put out some improved looking stuff, and I thought they looked quite sharp, right? Now I decided to partake in the Sauber end of year sale.
Ooh.
because I actually, what I wanted was to see if they had any indication of when the new Alfa Romeo branded teamwear comes out, because give me some of that.
Did you pick up a Pascal whilst you was there?
Pick up a Pascal? No. But what I did do was pick up a team polo shirt. This was reduced in the end of season sale, and the quotation marks are implied. Would you care to guess the price difference during this very vital end of season sale? The chance to clear out your stock, and bearing in mind that the shirts become essentially worthless after the season concludes.
Was it a 5% discount?
I tell you what, I will give you the raw numbers, as impressive as they are.
Oh god.
Originally, the shirt was I'm pulling this from memory, but I'm pretty sure about this. €63 dollar pounds.
Oh.
Now, in this once-in-a-lifetime end-of-season sale, bearing in mind teams like Toro Rosso slashed their prices massively at the end of season.
Yes.
Sauber have very generously cut the price down by €11. So the shirt is now €52, and we are 4 weeks away or so from the new season beginning. Now, I hear you gasp in horror, but wait, the plot thickens.
Uh-oh.
As I almost crash onto pit entry. I hate this pit entrance. It's so narrow.
It's awful, isn't it?
So I put this into my basket, and I have ordered it because I want to find out if the quality is worth it. I put it into my basket, and obviously Sauber is a Swiss company, but the sportswear company that provides their stuff is actually Italian, and normally they sell through their own website, but this was bought through the Sauber shop. And so by default the prices are in Swiss francs, and that makes me wonder if that's part of the factor here.
Okay.
But I pay €52 for the shirt, and then shipping it to Germany, right? Which, if it's coming from Italy, is 2 countries over. If it's coming from Switzerland, we share a border. €19.50. It gets even better than that. It gets even better than that, my friend. €19.50 is budget shipping without insurance. So if the package doesn't arrive, if the package does not arrive, I am liable. They will not replace the product.
No.
If I wanted to send it with a tracking number and insurance, €36. €36 for shipping, which is essentially like buying a second shirt.
That's fucking minutia. No.
How insane is that? No wonder fans are annoyed. Just so annoyed with Formula One and all the problems. I mean, supporting a team, and this is a team at the back of the grid that needs the money, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it should not be that expensive. I was talking today with someone about my experiences at Formula E. Now, obviously, Formula E is a different ball game, and it hasn't got the big corporate dong waving going on in the background or anything. So I understand, I'm comparing apples and oranges here.
Yeah.
But you can spend an entire day qualifying and race with all these side events, bars, restaurants, entertainment, live music, the whole shebang, right? In the middle of a city, usually, with convenient public transport and plenty of parking.
Yep.
And you can get in for as little as €5. And if you've got kids, they go in free, right?
Yeah.
And as a result, very well attended.
Yes.
Very enjoyable event. I don't think it's justifiable to be charging your fans that much for merchandise. I mean, tickets is maybe a bit different, right? Because it is expensive to host a Grand Prix, and there are ancillary costs and everything.
Sure.
But, I mean, even the Formula E teams don't hawk their wares at that scandalous rate. I mean, honestly, I'm a little bit offended. And this better be the best fucking shirt I've ever owned. I better be able to wear it to a wedding and a funeral. It should be light. It should be comfortable to wear. It should be dry fit, preferably sweat resistant. And it should go very well with a classic timepiece.
I want every time for you to say, I can do this, to just shout back at you, I'm the Merrickson, because it needs to do something for that price. That's ridiculous. I can't believe that.
What I'm going to do, actually, is I might start wearing it for every Failcast episode. And as it gradually falls apart around me, because they always do these shirts, like the sponsors peel off and everything, the threads get bare, and sometimes quite quickly, McLaren, I'm looking at you. Because my Williams shirt is phenomenal. My Haas shirt is garbage, but I'm getting off track. As the Sauber shirt degrades around me, I'm going to sit here, pick threads off it and go, well, that's 15 quid right there. And just make sure the message gets out there that until they correct their prices, they are and have remained for the last 6 years the worst value for money team to support with your custom. I'm honestly astonished.
Rubbish.
They're all quite pricey, don't get me wrong, but Sauber is far and away the most expensive, and given the minuscule amount of printing that those shirts require, I'm a little bit offended that they think they can get away with that.
That's rubbish. I find that with well, I mean, anything that's got some kind of logo-y and sponsorship-y type deal is always massively bloated. But on a slightly different tangent, I bought some stuff that was on a double sale from something called Insert Coin, which deals with gaming clothing. And on a double sale, so this was like 20% with another 20% off, and I had a coupon, and I was still sitting there going, can I justify this? So yeah, it's just anything that's like low print runs or like limited resource, it's always ridiculous price wise, and I get very angry at the whole thing. Oh, let's watch you.
Right then, now we've given some very angry consumer advice.
Yeah.
I suppose we should get onto some Formula One news and or opinion.
Yeah.
Would you like to kick us off? Do you have anything in mind, or shall I dive into the news flag?
Well, whilst you're out on track and I'm not at the minute, because we've got you on the screen so that viewers can get to see the other half-hole in action. You're
not watching, are you? I'm going to crash now. I know real people are watching.
Oh, and we've got several actually watching at the minute. We're doing quite well for numbers. Do so hello people in chat. So I was just going to quickly reel off. He was talking about the fact that we've only got one Brit in F1 next year, and it's all very sad because that one Brit is Lewis Hamilton. Actually, on the Hamilton front, I did spot a news article which says that he has now bought his nephew a princess dress. So that was all.
Jesus Christ!
But he did buy it whilst being in dreadlocks, and so I was just struggling who was supposed to be wearing the princess dress because he looked like he had more female hair than everyone else in the picture put together.
I just want to say that is peak millennial, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, look at my marginalised hair. I apologise for being a sexist. No, Lewis, no.
Have an opinion and stick to it, or at least say sorry, I'm wrong. Get out of the way, Hamilton. Just because we're talking about it.
It's fine to apologise and say, like, I'm sorry if I've upset anybody, but there's just so much bigger stuff going on in the world, and
yes,
people will try and trip you up for anything. And as soon as you, I mean, it's kind of a difficult thing to say, isn't it? To say never apologise, but really, like, have some backbone and.
Some backbone, some bollocks, and actually say what you feel and do with it. And quote unquote snowflakes can deal with things in. Anyway, I'm going to get onto world politics later. But yeah, because he's the only Brit, I've been keeping a speedy eye on what some of our Brits coming up through the ranks are doing, because we know that Lando Norris is McLaren tester and going off and doing other bits in I'm going to say Japan, but George Russell, who won GP3, has now signed for ART in GP2. Now ART are the big team in Formula 2, and GP3 to be fair. They had the first 4 places, I believe, in the championship in GP3.
Behemoths, mate, yeah.
Yes. And they do have some really good Instagram posts if people are Instagrammers. So yeah, follow ART on there, they're good laugh. And they talk back to people when they comment them as well, which I always find quite nice and humble.
Yeah, it's always nice when they actually engage with people, I think.
Especially, I quite like Jensen Button on Instagram because he posts on Formula One posts. And with like trolly comments, and I find it really funny. because sometimes his comments have got just as many likes as the actual photo itself. So yeah, George Russell has signed up for GP2, which lines him up very nicely if he's going to be a Force India tester and reserver in the future or whatever as well. Jake Hughes, who done very, very well also in lower Formula E, has signed up for GP3 as well. So that keeps our little Brit train running. So we've got one Brit in test, one Brit in GP Formula 2. It will still be GP2 to me. And GP3, we've got someone in as well. So it's nice to see that we do actually have a succession of British drivers coming through. And they all do quite well. There's a couple of others that are kind of kicking around as well that are worth mentioning, but they'd already signed before our last episode. So those are just people that have come in the last 2 weeks.
Thanks for ruining my lap, Nico Hulkenberg.
Bulkingberging.
But it's good to see that Jolyon Palmer has not ruined it for all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the hot topic. Where is he now? Where's he going?
I don't know.
That's a hot career to follow.
Well, he keeps posting in football stadiums, I notice on Instagram. So I don't know if he's decided that he's just going to
career change.
Yeah. Maybe because he's just so slow and bulky, he'll just end up in goal. Stand there.
No, but it is good you mentioned that actually, because obviously I'm in Germany and something very similar has popped up in the news here, where people are lamenting the fact that there are only 2 Germans on the grid. I would point out that one of them is Sebastian Vettel and the other is Nico Hulkenberg, and so it's not like you're wanting for talent, really, but fucking
careful.
Do you know, on my screen, I didn't touch it, but then the car just sort of wildly jerks. I don't even know what happened, but it's a horrible pit entry, and I hate it.
It needs to change, actually. I think that pit entry is more dangerous than what it was when you peeled off at the beginning of the bus stop. I remember when they creamed into each other in '98, Nakano and Fisichella.
Isn't that where? Isn't that also where David Coulthard binned it? Didn't he bin it at Spa on pit entry?
No, that was Adelaide.
Come on, we've got knowledgeable people here. If it's not us, someone will know.
It was Adelaide in '95. He binned it in the pit lane.
Goddamn.
And
I really thought it was Spa for some reason.
No, Monza on the formation lap.
His chin must have got in the way. Love you, DC.
Oh, talking of DC, actually, as we dive around. Unless did you want to finish off on Germans and lack of?
Yeah, I did. Now, the piece didn't actually cover any young up-and-coming Germans, and actually, I'm not familiar with any that are coming through the junior ranks right now.
There are a couple, but they're too busy holding out for Mick Schumacher, who actually has been very middle of the road in...
That's where I was segueing into, because I also saw an announcement that Ralf Schumacher's son is starting to break through. And it did make me wonder if the talent is going to pendulum, and suddenly Ralf Schumacher's son is going to become the dominant one. But they're both running open-wheel campaigns this year.
Oh, interesting. I'll keep an eye out for that. Because traditionally, when you look at brothers in motorsport, it's almost always been the younger brother that has had the better talent until the Schumachers came along and then ruined it. Because I was looking at... there used to be a great... it's still going, actually, the F1 magazine, F1 Racing. And I used to buy it back in the 90s. And I had a collection of them for years. And when Ralf Schumacher was coming onto the grid, the big story was Ralf is going to trounce Michael. It's always been tradition that the younger brother is going to be better. And I like to look at things like 10 years on and just go, look how wrong all those predictions were.
I remember hearing an interview with Gary Anderson when he was talking about Michael Schumacher's career, actually, and obviously he designed the Jordan 191 that. Or the 192 even, maybe, that Schumacher debuted in. And he recalls Schumacher telling him that, I've got a younger brother and he's even faster. And you think, fucking hell, that was charitable. He must love his brother. I don't know if you could have heard that noise outside there briefly, but just occasionally, actual Nazis walk past.
What?
Yeah,
I couldn't
it
hear
happens.
that.
Not today, but it actually does happen. just occasionally, and it's normally quite loud because they're quite loud themselves. It's actually a little bit scary, as you would expect, but there's quite a strong counter protest that kind of runs alongside, and then there's a Greenpeace office across the street, and they're always leaning out of the windows like shouting abuse. I mean, it's quite good to sit and watch, but it's not a great background for a podcast.
No.
Can't help but notice that
you're a wee bit
happened
fast.
to have clinched pole there.
In Q1, yeah.
In Q1, but
looking good. Looking very good.
Q1 pole is still a kind of pole. I'm determined to break my pole duck. I've never been on pole position on merit in all the years we've been doing this. I've inherited pole from you, actually. Yeah. I have inherited pole. Oh no.
Yeah.
I've got a dry setup and
It's like, so the race itself is dry, but apparently on 45 minutes it's wet. So we might actually get the very last lap or two as being wet. And this session dries as it goes on. So actually we'll do inters and then we'll probably get a lap out in dries at the end. So,
that's good though, because it means it doesn't matter if I put some laps on early on the tyres, because...
Exactly. So I'm gonna go out so that I can feel what it's like on inters, but we'll be back in and get a lap in on dries. But we'll have to make it count. Pressure!
Timing will be key, right, as well, because
the
game really does like to throw that at you. In fact, I've had sessions where you have to go out on dries when it's the wrong tyre in order to be on a fast lap when they activate, which is really annoying.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, actually, some of you will recall that my career mode Brazilian Grand Prix was heavy rain, and all the way through, Jeff was advising me to switch to slicks. Well, I was running Australia in career mode just yesterday. Oh, nearly lost it there.
So did I. I've lost my front wing.
It's very slippery. And I was in 7th fighting with Massa for 6th, and then the safety car comes out because Ocon bins it. And I'm joining the back of the safety car queue, and then Jeff gets on the radio and says, you can overtake the car in front.
Okay.
And I was thinking, Jeff, are you trying to get me a penalty?
Oh, they won't overtake me.
Yeah, what's going on? Oh, it's because we're all on outlaps. But that's new. The AI's never done that before.
Normally, if I slow down enough, they'll let me go through, but clearly not. I'm going to pull right over to a stop.
They're just stopping.
I'll do it on the racing line. Go through.
They're just stopping.
Hamilton?
But I mean, I can go through if you want.
Yeah, it gives you some clean air.
Oh right, sorry. I thought you were trying to let them through.
No, I was trying to.
Out of my way, peasants.
That could be the closest that we're on track all episode.
Okay, moving on then. Let's get back on the news. Speaking of one, Mr. Jensen Button had a birthday recently. Did you see his fantastic series of posts about the weekend he spent with Daniel Ricciardo?
No, I didn't.
They're actually quite good. The promotion for it actually was pretty good as well. He'd sort of stitched together little bits of video from his weekend, and he catches up with Daniel Ricciardo as he's at an autograph signing, and he gets to the front of the table and sort of meekly goes, "Can I have an autograph, please?" "Yeah, sure. What's your name?" "Jensen." "Jason?" "No, Jensen." It was a very cool little exchange. But he's driving Super GT.
Yes.
I want to say. And he posted a picture of his car, and it looks like a beast. And it's a little bit sad, really, that we're going to talk about WEC later on as well, and Formula E, and that a podcast that is first and foremost Formula One concerned. I've just fucking binned my car.
Oh no, you've not lost a wheel, have you?
Yeah.
No! No!
Every week!
No!
Mate, it is so slippery at the top of Eau Rouge. I mean, insanely slippery.
Oh, dude.
And I barreled between I thought I'd caught it back. But I was sort of ping-ponging between the rumble strips. Hey ho, every week.
Oh God, is that the sirens coming to collect your car in the background?
Yeah, collect my carcass. I've died of shame.
Oh, dude.
I'm normally so good in the wet in these games.
Never mind.
Never mind. Hey ho, these things happen. Yeah, it's kind of sad that in a primarily Formula One concerned podcast that actually I'm getting more excited for other cars. But his Super GT car looks phenomenal. And I'm actually, now he's in it, I'm actually keen to give it a try. I don't know how easy it is for me to access, really.
It's difficult to watch, but they do put some highlights on YouTube. But I've discovered, I've discovered a new place to find motorsport stuff to watch online. It's called motorsportarchive.com. Because it was where I was...
That sounds copyright infringing.
It does. I don't think it will last long, but because motorsportforeveryone.eu has gone down, because they kept on getting copyright claimed on certain stuff, not Formula One, amazingly. That's gone down. So my place to find things like the V8 supercars and stuff like that, I was like, where will I go? And then I spotted this, and they was hosting the Daytona 24 Hours on YouTube, somehow getting away with it, and I was like, And I was like, nope, we've got a website full of everything. So yeah, if you want to watch any rally, because that's about all they've got on there at the minute, because it's only been up a couple of weeks, go there. But they say they'll have everything.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I could just be being really ignorant here, but there is no, like, aside from the stuff like the season review DVDs, there is no way to legit see old races, is there?
No. So not for Formula One. No. Other champion leagues like IndyCar, they put up old races and stuff like that. And obviously we've got a couple of our old favourite YouTube channels that we like to keep on top of.
Yeah, it's just I don't know why they don't make more use of that library. I think maybe that's something Liberty will actually begin to do, because they're already talking about a streaming service eventually and making documentaries. So perhaps they'll dig into it. But it always struck me as very odd that, you know, if you wanted to go back and watch some really classic races,
like historic ones.
they Mr.
need
Variety
to.
Man.
Yeah, although he's changed his name now to something else, because he puts up lots of things like a supermarket sweep as well.
Yeah, God bless him.
Oh,
I think about him when I'm at the checkout and I hear the beep.
You don't think of Dale. Chimpy, thank you for that. But they don't put up full races, I think, is what my thing is. I'm sure the man that is Mr. Variety Man, it might not be the same person. He used to, but he doesn't anymore, sell the BBC highlights that they used to do in the 80s and 90s of races out on DVDs on YouTube, because that's how I got a couple of seasons of BBC highlights on DVD. Because I'm willing to pay for full races and stuff. But
Yeah, me too. I mean, it does puzzle a lot of people, because I have spoken with friends about this, and they say, why are you watching old races? Because chances are you remember the result.
Put up the 2001 Malaysian Grand Prix, but only for a short time.
Yes, exactly.
That's actually quite surprising, but I mean, it was a good race to pick.
Yes, but it's the only one they've ever done.
Yeah, that was the one with the monsoon, wasn't it? Where everyone was all over the place.
And Verstappen was busy in second in the Arrows.
Yeah, happy days.
Aww.
Oh, I thought you were going to lose it as well then, mate.
So, I'll start. Might do, yeah. DRS has just been turned on, so that's why it's extra slippy. I'm coming back.
Okay, we can take you this lap.
Yeah, we can't both bin it. I mean, it's fitting for the title, but it's embarrassing. No, I'm surprised that they did, but I mean, it's something that they should be doing. And again, people say to me, well, why are you even interested in old races? But it is actually a really useful benchmark. And you do see things through a new lens, because obviously people today criticise Formula One as boring, and you know, at times it can be. There's always bad races every season.
Yep. Oh, hey,
But
James.
you know, people
Smithy,
were
you
calling
sexy
it.
man.
Hello,
He's
bad.
right. You are a sexy man.
Hello, Bad Nova,
Um,
whoever that is. A wonderful pink car is their icon.
That you know, people were saying F1 was boring in the early 2000s, mid 2000s,
No,
the
it
late
wasn't.
90s. But when you go back, you realise it actually wasn't. And there's a lot of teams that you always sort of instinctually think were never even remotely competitive. And then you go back and watch a race, and suddenly there's a Tyrrell in 7th for some reason. And you forget that it happens. And Nigel Mansell, segueing back into some real F1 news,
Yeah.
he touched on this a little bit. I saw he put out some comments where he was saying that the F1 field, talking about teams, not drivers, lacks the depth that creates entertaining races and upset results. And
Yeah.
do you know what? He's right.
It's true.
Because if you, we always go back to the 90s, and I feel like it becomes like a stuck record, right? But
It does.
80s is a good example as well. So is parts of the 2000s. If you think about just how rich the field was, particularly through till sort of 95, 96, where, yeah, there was a lot of variability between teams, but there was a very tight midfield. And even if one team got the formula spot on and was quite dominant, the races were still entertaining and a lot of stuff happened. I mean, I remember, stuff like Damon Hill's stint at Jordan, where they were picking up the occasional shock win and everything, and it was pointed out that doesn't really happen anymore. And it's kind of right. I think the last sort of real shock upset result I can recall is Pastor Maldonado
Yeah.
failing to crash and winning in Spain. Like
Disgracefully.
that's the sort of last real example. And I've been trying to rack my brains over the last few seasons about any like super shocking results that could have happened, and not as a byproduct of like a mistake by Lewis. And I can't really think of very much. I think Kevin Magnussen had a drive last season where he ended up quite high up the field towards the end of the race, but he ended up dropping back to like 7th or 8th before the race finished.
We had Azerbaijan with Stroll on the podium, but he ended up being the only person outside of the top 6 that actually stood on the podium, wasn't it, with Stroll? And maybe Massa might have won that if he hadn't have had his mechanical problems.
So, yeah, he had his problem, didn't he? He had his suspension collapse.
Yeah, and that may have been the only one.
But to be fair, that car always had somewhere within it the potential to be there. So it was only a shock result because they hadn't really...
Vettel winning in Australia faced with tears of joy.
No. I get what you mean. I get what you mean, but no, all at the same time.
No, and I suppose what he was talking about was, and I believe he made specific mention of like teams like Benetton, Jordan, Ligier/Prost, that particularly at the start of the tyre wars, you could get some quite surprising results. Where suddenly the Bridgestones were on it or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's actually right, but at the same time he's wrong, because if you look at this season in particular, like obviously you forget Sauber and Haas because they were never really on it. Over the course of the year, the battle in the midfield has actually been really entertaining, and it is quite striking to me that people are prepared to write a season off as boring if that competition doesn't extend to the front, which being the sport being the way it is, it usually doesn't extend to the front of the grid. It's not hugely frequent that a battle for the win is between two opposing teams, and actually we've been a little bit more spoiled for that lately than we have been in the years preceding, because you've been in a situation where Ferrari have had the potential to win and they have been in the fight. It's just they've not been able to sort of keep their head in the game.
Do you not feel though that so I suppose there's two things that stick out for me about the difference between unpredictability or like surprise results or just variation in teams? And the first thing is reliability. and the ongoing bulletproofness of a field, which has its perks and disperks, because obviously you don't have everyone conking out, unlike that Monaco 82 where everyone runs out of fuel and there was like 11 lead changes and everything like that. But then you've also, my thing, I don't think this gets nearly enough as much attention. It's just the sheer amount of data that is available for everyone, race per race, from every like sensor. I feel like if my arse was in a car, it would be able to know if I farted, because going into Eau Rouge and thinking I'm not going to make it, they'd be like, yes, you affected the airflow with that, because it just feels like there's too much data, so therefore everyone is running at the same level because there isn't anything to find, because everyone's already got it. Does that make sense?
I kind of know what you're getting at, but there's two sides to that, as there is with anything, because in part you're right, and this is something Adrian Newey touched on in his book, right, that the kind of failures you used to get you don't have anymore because of the way technology has advanced. So, you know, if you remember back to the years where Arrows was trying to build its own engine, it would roll off the grid for the warm-up lap and then spontaneously burst into flames.
Yes.
Which was arguably the best thing it did. Now that was happening in some cases because there was an undetected flaw in the metal, right? Whereas now when they cast the engine block, they can check it for any imperfection.
Yeah.
And so from that side, you're right, but I do want to say that it's not quite the full picture, because look at Sauber. At the end of last year, they suddenly figured out how to make the tyres work. And then we saw over the sort of last 3-4 races of the season, they actually found some speed that was sort of laying dormant in the car, but they'd been unable to unlock. And Williams, who we were talking about just a moment ago, they also demonstrate that to some degree, because, you know, most people would say that the Williams, I mean, it's certainly been a mercurial car over the last 4 years, but it's not a slow car by any stretch. It's just a car that they can't seem to make work consistently.
Strolling. So.
And you know, like we said, they sort of figured out how to make the car slippery in 2014 and then forgot how to do everything else. It's all the same issue, just viewed from a different perspective. Same with the grid, same with reliability, same with the teams that are on the grid right now. And maybe it's time we start celebrating that a little bit more. Because if you really think about it, what would the sport be without it? I got onto this train of thought because obviously it was announced that Formula One may be disappearing completely from British free-to-air TV.
Yes, well, it disappeared from Italy. It will do this year because Rai Uno does no longer have it.
Correct. And the majority of the comments on the Facebook announcement of that news were saying, well, it's shit anyway, it's boring, I'm not going to watch it.
One channel on here has most of the races from 1979, including non-championship rounds.
I must know where this is.
Yes, if you find the name, James, give us shout it out on the broadcast, and we'll let us know.
Last I saw, you were pole. Has that held?
No, 6th.
Oh, well, you're still in Q3, so you're on for a good run.
Yeah.
Whereas I will be starting 15th.
Not grand.
That's not too bad, though, because that still gives me free tyre choice, right? I can start on a harder compound.
Yeah, and you've got Jolyon and Alonso will be easy pickings, hopefully. And then that's 2 out the way straight away.
I don't know, Alonso's AI's got quite a lot feistier, hasn't it, in recent updates? And actually, I wanted to talk to you about something on that note, because we're talking about reliability, and now we're talking about the game AI. I had a interesting failure yesterday in the game that I didn't know was present, and maybe someone else here has had it. So I was driving my Sauber in my career mode at Australia, and there was about 5 laps from the finish. It was actually after the safety car I was just talking about, and Jeff gets on the radio and says, I think we've got a sensor failure. Don't worry about it. I think it's just bad data. And what it was doing was feeding me incorrect information about my remaining fuel and my tire temperatures. So when I was flicking through the menus, it was telling me like I was half a lap short of fuel, and I was going to run out of fuel, and I didn't.
Oh, wow.
It was fine. And I don't know if that's come in with a new patch, because it has never happened before, and I've played a lot of this game. I've never had that happen. The only failures I've had so far have been stuff related to the career mode, where, you know, a component's overworn or whatever.
Yep.
And like you'll lose gears or start spinning because the diff breaks. I've also had, you know, the engine's down on power and all that kind of stuff, and I've had the DRS stuck closed.
It's called the Fast Lane, apparently. That channel.
Well, 1 out of 10 for imagination on the name, but 10 out of 10 for the content. Nice.
No, I've never had that as a reliability thing. Oh, I've had stuff blow up quite a lot in practice because I always switch back to old components, apart from gearboxes, for practice, and then invariably I'm like 5 seconds off the pace with like 75% worn parts everywhere, and then it just explodes all over the shot. You're like, oh.
I love that mechanic though, and I see so many tweets from people saying, "I wish I could turn it off. It's stupid," but it really isn't. It's such a great addition to the game. I think anything that adds depth like that is really good. In my McLaren career mode, I took a grid penalty every single one of the last 7 rounds. Every single one. And what I realised was that if I spent all my R&D points in performance and completely ignored trying to make my engines and gearboxes last, because they wouldn't, it'd take 2-3 seasons of investment to get there, then I could boost the car enough to actually like win from last. I was winning races by the end of my first season.
Nice.
I think I had 2 wins in my first season, so it is possible. And I like that you can pick a strategy in that regard. Anywho, moving onwards. Other topic in the news. One Mr. Romain Grosjean was interviewed, and
always good for a soundbite.
In his opinion, he's always good for an interview, that lad. And he hasn't disappointed us. He has not disappointed us, because he has exclaimed that he believes he'll be in Formula 1 until he's 40.
Mon Dieu.
Now, bearing in mind that
he's not
almost no drivers make it till 40, and Kimi Raikkonen is going to presumably be kicked out a year short. I think it's a little bit optimistic to say, well, Kimi Raikkonen couldn't make it, but I will. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that, because we're in a strange position where normally in sport, particularly it's a bit different this year because the cars have got harder to drive in some respects, but there was a period of Formula 1 quite recently where the cars were seen as being too easy to drive, and you would think that would like extend a driver's lifespan. But the relentless march has continued, and now like people are already suspecting you of being semi-retired by the time you hit 35, and they're pulling drivers into seats, 17, 18 years old.
Enough forgets he might be okay.
It's true. Fortify with the carbs. Some wise words there. I don't know if it'll help his brake issues.
Maybe you'll do a cookbook on it.
Yeah, a cookbook on bread to improve your brakes and longevity.
Carbs for carbon.
Exactly. Oh, Carb Industries brakes.
They write themselves.
They do. We fall into this trap. No, I honestly don't see it, and he's one of the drivers I'm worried about for 2020 or 2019 actually, because I just can't see where he can go. It's not that I think he's a bad driver. I think the Haas has done him a disservice. I think it hasn't allowed him to showcase what he's actually capable of. We saw flashes of that at Lotus, I don't think he's a terrible driver. He's certainly not as bad as a lot of people are making out that he is, because F1 fans have a very short memory, I think. They're very reactionary. Less so the kind of people that we associate with, because they wouldn't be sat here listening to us if they were super reactionary, I think. But
they got bored quickly.
yeah, but it's very easy for people to sort of decide that something is blatantly obvious. Like with Massa, everyone was saying, well, Massa's complete garbage, and then he went to Williams and was suddenly brilliant again, and then he's had one season this year that I don't think was actually as terrible as people make out, and social media's been full of messages saying, well, it's time he stepped down anyway, he's been useless. And you think, you've got a very short memory. I think people forget that these cars are prototypes, and that every year the teams put out a brand new car, often with different running gear, and that it won't always suit every driver 100% of the time. It doesn't mean the driver is bad. It just means that this formula is not something that they're comfortable with. We saw that with Sebastian Vettel entering the formula that was defined in 2014. That he went from being unbeatable, and sure, the car was still garbage, but he was losing to his teammate to an extent that we've never seen with him before. It doesn't mean Sebastian Vettel's a terrible driver. It just means that Daniel was able to get the best out of that car. It's a variable just like any other. And I think Roman has something to offer Formula One, but I don't think he'll get the chance to do it, because where on earth is he going to go? Every door must be slammed in his face now.
His problem is he's no longer the idealised Frenchman, because that now belongs to Esteban Ocon. He's no longer Ferrari's fullback boy, that belongs to Charles Leclerc. So you're right. All doors lead to Haas, and Haas, we think, will be out the door in a couple of years. So then you kind of think, well, where do you go? Because Hulkenberg have said, and Chimpy's just jumped in with Renault, and I would say he left on good terms, but I don't think they'd have him back in a hurry with their current driver pairing.
No, and we suspect that they'll lose Sainz after this year.
And that
which
might
ties
open
into a story that we're going to build up to. But and I suspect they will lose Sainz, but they've got such a wide range of drivers available to them. I don't know why they would go back to Romain. And again, it's not that he's a bad driver. It's just that we are in the opposite position to where we were sort of 2012, 2013, 2014, where we have a glut of talent now. Where, previously there was, for all the shit Max Chilton got, around the time he and Maldonado were in there and Bruno Senna, there was a lot of controversy around drivers that weren't really there on merit. And I think you're hard-pressed right now. The more cynical among us could probably point to Lance Stroll, but I continually point to his junior Formula E record and say, don't judge him on a debut season. I think most drivers, you need to give them a season to get their eye in, and if they don't deliver in the second season, then by all means fire them. But I don't think money is the sole reason he's in that Williams seat, just like Sorokin isn't in there just because of his money.
No.
And I can't see a driver on the grid today that is completely without merit beyond the money they bring.
Do it.
And again, a lot of fingers immediately fly towards Marcus Ericsson, but again, smallest qualifying differential between teammates on the grid to someone who was supposed to be Mercedes' next big thing protege.
For the crash.
I didn't actually see how he got on in Daytona. Did you see, Si?
Well, there was the team crashed out, but he wasn't doing too badly. Alonso wasn't doing too badly either, to be fair. But although I was more interested in some of the other drivers that have been passed over in Formula One. I was like, they're beating Alonso, they're beating Stroll. So yeah, and Helio Castroneves winning, battling up front for the whole thing. And I was like,
but again, this ties into my point, right? That it's another variable.
Yep.
And this shows that Alonso may be one of the very best drivers in the world, but in that particular moment in that car, he was not any less of a driver. He just wasn't able to compete on the same level as some other guys.
No, and to be fair, that Ligier was not the best car out there anyway. But You're right, and the formula changes every year, and so does the dynamics around stuff. And going back to Grosjean, I don't think this "we must be sensitive on the tyres" approach is necessarily helping him out. We've moved from being sensitive on the tyres and having to be ginger on the brakes to now floor it a little bit more and being more aggressive with the car. And I don't think that that's really helped his style, because when you last think about being aggressive with cars was back in '08 when he made his debut, and he was locking brakes and spinning around like a top back then before he went back down. And so as formulas change as they go around, things work better to different things. But it's interesting what you say about the point on cars being harder to drive physically, so therefore more fetuses are in the car earlier, and therefore drivers get pensioned off earlier. Because I'd have almost thought experience maybe is weighted upon a little bit more now as well, because experiencing a car that is an absolute behemoth would carry more weight against someone breezing around in a simulator. I don't know.
Well, you would think so, right? But I think Formula One teams are trying to take the long game approach, with the exception of Ferrari, who've never played that way. But even they're starting to make moves in that direction, right? Mm-hmm. Where I think everybody is, first of all, they remember Lewis Hamilton, but I think also a lot of people are quite terrified of Max Verstappen. And then Esteban Ocon arrives, and he's someone that's got a lot of people excited, and deservedly so. Mm-hmm. And you have to be aware that, okay, you can keep Alonso in your car, or Hamilton, or whoever, and maybe you'll win the championship this year or next, but every seat you give over to established talent is a seat you can't give to someone who may go on to be dominant for another 10, 15 seasons. I mean, that's really it, right? I mean, that's why Ferrari's decision to always retain Raikkonen, as much as I rate him, has always been a surprise. I mean, it's not out of character for Ferrari, but I mean, Kimi's not exactly been at his best, right? And do you want, even if it was Kimi at his absolute finest, do you want 2 years of Kimi, or do you want 12 years of Leclerc?
Because it does feel like a changing of the guard at the moment. Out with one lot, in with the next generation, doesn't it?
Yeah, and normally I don't like that. It takes me a while to warm to new drivers, but this is the first time that I feel the opposite way. And I think it's because the young talent is for once genuinely compelling. And that makes me think, well, this is what F1's always been about: competition. It's the toughest motorsport competition in the world. So put up or shut up. If you can't compete on the same level as the kids, then sorry, it's time to go.
It does also
have. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, it does also kind of make me feel, with this glut of talent and everyone that's coming in, that we really need an 11th and 12th team.
Yes, we do, and Ross Brawn agrees.
Yeah.
And I agree with Ross Brawn.
We are with Brawn. Hashtag he is my president.
Exactly. No, that's the whole thing. The young talent has so much to offer now, and by clinging on to the past, you potentially risk the future.
Yeah.
Because think about it. If Ferrari hadn't have put Charles Leclerc in the Sauber seat, and suddenly, let's say, Bottas had retired, suddenly you've got. I mean, obviously it's a bit more complicated because contracts are already in place and whatnot. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you allow a talented young driver to have any ambiguity in the direction of their career, they will go somewhere else, and often there is a wiggle room for them to somehow get there. Yeah. Because we saw that with Ocon, that he was initially a Renault junior driver, and he transitioned into the Mercedes program because, hey, they can get him into a seat. Renault couldn't get him into a seat. And now Renault will be kicking themselves because, sure, they've got a great lineup now with Hulkenberg and Sainz, but Sainz is going to be gone soon, and I bet they'd love to have been able to put Ocon in that seat.
Yep.
But they didn't move quick enough.
French on French. It's telling me I'm going to pit on lap 4, by the way.
What they should have done, which seems counterintuitive, of course, is taken the risk and got rid of Palmer early and promoted Ocon.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen. And often, it's often said you don't really know what you've got till it's gone, and Force India are demonstrating what they've lost.
Yeah, they should have Jolie-offed, not Jolie-oned.
Like it. Okay, I have found my sweet spot. I'm starting on the softs.
Ooh, you jammy.
A tyre that I hate, and I'm pitting on lap 12 to the super softs. And I dislike the fact that I'm not running the ultra softs, but I think this could... Oh, actually no, it won't work because we're getting rain at the end of the Grand Prix.
Right at the very end, though.
Yes, but this
In
means
theory.
I'm going to crash. And it means I should maximize. I should maximize my time on the faster tires.
Who knows? Who knows?
No, I'm gonna stick with my counterintuitive counter strategy.
Hey, stick or twist. Stick in that twist. All right.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Then let's get through the awkward formation lap and the even more awkward first lap without dying, hopefully. And we can press on with the news.
Yes.
I'll move on to a little bit of basically irrelevant news while we're doing the formation lap, and then we can get back onto the hot topics.
Yeah.
Toro Rosso have finally changed their logo.
Yeah, but I couldn't notice what the difference was.
They've lost sort of like they had almost a calligraphy style in the background. It's quite subtle actually. I only know because I've got some Toro Rosso teamwear, and
Of course.
I tell you what, I used to really dislike the Toro Rosso look, and then the last 2 years of the old gold, dark blue, and red look actually really grew on me. And Casio put out a watch, Toro Rosso branded watch that I thought looked phenomenal.
Ooh.
And now they've changed it to the blue and silver and bright red. And I have to say, even though that livery really impressed me when it first came out and I was excited for it, by 2 races in, I hated it.
No, I liked it. I know we said this last episode, but I did like it. I liked it for longer. I think I was just more unimpressed with just the general explosion of that team over the course of the season that maybe affected my livery loving.
No, for me it's that it looks good in a studio, but out on track I don't think it looks very good at all. And I don't know, maybe it's a bit too primary colour. Maybe the colours are a bit too vibrant. It's overstimulating.
Oh, baby.
It's not safe for child consumption. But yeah. Anyhow. I tell you who else I put in that category with Grosjean actually would be Sergio Perez, but for different reasons.
Yeah. What do you do with a problem like Sergio?
Yeah, because they're both in the same position, but for wildly different reasons.
Mm-hmm. And this is the same problem that Hulkenberg had up until last year. Now he's got himself sorted, but now Sergio's kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, what we need really is Force India to get a works deal from a new engine supplier coming in. But it seems every day now less and less interest from companies is happening, and now Cosworth and Aston Martin are talking about merging their proposed entry, and yeah, but we thought that might happen anyway, right? Because Cosworth said, well, we want to enter, but we need a manufacturer's backing to make it financially workable. And but then all the comments around Porsche possibly entering, that's completely evaporated, as if it never happened. Although I'm going to keep bouncing between tangents here, but I tell you what might be happening: the Haas Maserati tie-up. I saw a fresh comment from Marchione about that, which I wasn't expecting, because I thought the door had closed on that arrangement. Ooh, I made it out alive.
Only just. There was some yellow. Oh, go on, Bottas.
Why? Why did you drive into the back of me?
Oh no!
I got a 5-second stop-go penalty for a severe collision with Perez. I can't even see him. I don't know where he is.
God.
And I've lost half my front wing.
I've just done
damn
the
it,
same with
Hulkenberg.
Vettel. Who I've... Oh, sorry, Seb.
But you'll need to take it easy to avoid making the problem worse.
Oh,
Oh,
well.
this is a disaster.
This'll be Hamilton's race. Oh, we've lost someone. Someone's retired.
Perez probably, because apparently he smacked into me out of
Oh,
nowhere.
okay.
I got a warning telling me that I performed an illegal overtake on Nico Hulkenberg, which was not possible because I didn't pass him. He was already behind me. And then as I tried to let him through, he wouldn't go through. So I moved off the racing line to let him through, and then suddenly flew into a barrier, and apparently I'd hit Perez. But I looked behind me and he wasn't there, so I honestly don't know what
Another
happened.
glitch.
Do you love a glitch?
Quite possibly, but we've had a relatively glitch-free season this year compared to the seasons we've had before.
Yeah, yeah.
And I really need to pit because without this front wing element, I am super slow.
Same, but you go first. I can hold everyone up for another lap or two. I'm going to try and see if I can make it on the ultras to the stop because Hamilton's
Actually, I
well
just
up.
realised that I already can't make it into the pit safely with a full wing. So God knows what's going to happen here. It's just going to do my penalty. Not even going to change my wing.
Woo-hoo-hoo! Just lost it
That sounded interesting.
That was not how you take Eau Rouge on the grass. Fucking hell.
Well, that is my race done and dusted.
No, there's time for drama yet.
They put on ultra softs, which means
Oh.
I'm now on a 3-stop strategy.
Excellent.
I don't think it's possible to make that work. I was stood still in the pit box for 25 seconds. That doesn't include the time lost on pit entry and pit exit. So I must be over half a lap down.
Hopefully a safety car will take place. There's enough of a chain of cars behind me where I'm going so slow.
But it's okay because that allows me to speak news now without all the drama of other cars inconveniently getting in my way. So back onto the Perez. He's you're right. He's in that category with Hulkenberg where I think he's proven himself deserving of a big ride.
Oh!
We need to get you on new tyres and move
It's
Sorry.
just not going to happen. What happened to you?
badly damaged.
I was taken out by Bottas going around the outside of me at Blanchimont and then turning in.
Sounds like we're both having a rough one.
We are. Well, it must be rough if Palmer's 11th. Christ.
You are in the pit.
Somehow. I'm surprised I'm still going, actually.
Well, normally if you get taken out at speed, if they nudge you into the barrier, that's it. It's game over, isn't it?
Yeah. I think I went in perfectly nose first. Okay.
You have mastered the art of the crash.
Yes, I do it so often. It's not surprising.
Go, go, go.
Actually, we could be on for a little bit of juice.
Oh, are we going to be racing on exit? Surely not.
Tyres.
Oh, hello.
Hello, whoever has joined me. Unfortunately, I cannot see your comments because my chat isn't updating.
Is now available.
Sorry about that.
Never mind. Yeah, so I agree. I think Perez deserves a top drive. I think Ferrari will now overlooking for Leclerc. If they're going to stick true to their young gun strategy. If not, then Perez will be in there. But otherwise, I think he's stuck with Force India. But maybe Force India will have more of a chance in the 2020 this is how things are looking, because I saw on James Allen's website that Sauber and Force India have dropped the legal action that they started in 2015 around Formula One being run to basically run them out of the sport as independents because it's not fair because of prize money in XYZ. And they've just dropped all of that because they're happy with how things are going talk-wise. Now, I don't know if that's just publicito speak or if they're actually genuinely happy. But maybe that's signs of we can have a bit more of a level playing field in the future. Or as level as it can be, I guess.
Well, Liberty did say they wanted to tackle that, right? And this is why they've been throwing their weight around with Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they seem to be a little slow taking their finger off the trigger, actually. But
Fast slap, baby.
Well, yeah, I don't have to make the tyres last. I'm coming in again in a minute. I really lost it there. I mean, they did say they wanted to tackle that, and maybe they are making some good faith steps to make that happen. But also, politicking here for a moment, it could also be possible that Ferrari, as part of the Alfa Romeo deal, was pushing a little bit of weight around here, and maybe incentivized Sauber to drop that case, and perhaps Force India didn't want to pursue it alone. And I wouldn't be surprised if something about that comes out in a book 10 years from now. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Hey Simon and chatless Ben, feel at face with stuck out tongue.
Hang on, I will look down at who's just said hello once I'm out of a corner.
We think we may see some rain.
David M, hello. We've
Oh,
seen
was
you
that who was
before.
in my chat?
It may
Because
well
I
have been.
I cannot see.
Yeah, no, we've got a good collection of people watching actually. Yeah, I agree. I think that is ripe for a book. Ah, yeah, it was.
Sorry about that, mate.
What else was I going to say
In your
about
chat and your GPW videos, face with stuck out tongue.
Oh, you're a GPW guy. Oh, thank you very much for dropping in, mate. I tell you what, the best people watch those videos. I've not met a bad person to making those videos. It hasn't happened yet. I can't tell you what you were going to say, mate, but hopefully it was to agree with me on that, because I personally get the feeling that that maybe Ferrari have brought some weight to bear there, because I mean, it would also make sense as to why they're starting to reignite rumour about them partnering a bit more closely with Haas under a Maserati kind of deal.
because
I still don't really want that deal to happen, because I think there are no winners in it.
I don't know. So it's a weird one, because I guess because I don't really understand the car manufacturer space, and I'm quite ignorant on it. So I need to kind of research into who owns what and what kind of lays out to where long term. But for me, this is all about Ferrari basically losing their power as we are Team Ferrari. So screw it, let's stick our branding on and names onto other bits of the team so that we still maintain. If say votes all go like I'm gonna use a Grand Prix manager, a motorsport manager thing, where everyone goes in and votes with their political stuff and everyone's got a certain amount of votes. If Formula One is going to go down a much more democratic route as opposed to running things through Ferrari first, look how many votes they will then start to control versus a Red Bull. Who then has to start teaming up and making allies with other teams and so on and so forth. And then you're right, it does become Little Miss Political.
Well, the thing is that, like, for Sauber it makes sense, right? Because they were really in trouble.
Yeah.
Really in trouble. And Fred Vasseur took the brave step of cancelling the Honda deal, which, you know, for all their ills, was going to be very, very lucrative. It was going to secure the long-term survival of the team, if not their competitiveness.
Yeah.
But they needed to plug that financial hole. And, this deal allows them to do that. And they've said, well, we don't want to be on a constant Ferrari lifeline, but it will enable us to find our feet again. We don't want to lose our core skill sets.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to come back and be competitive again in the future. But we just need a few years to rebuild, and this is a great way to do that because we once again get technical support from Ferrari, and we've got the money coming in. And you think, okay, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But Haas have been very reluctant to allow Ferrari to pull any strings within the team, and I don't know why that would change in a positive way. God damn it, Van Dorn.
That sounded worrying.
Yeah, because I to be fair, I probably was a bit over-aggressive, but...
It was cancelled within the first hour of his new job, new cyber guy.
I know. What a great way to walk in. Hello, where's your chair? Where's that deal? Adrian Newey goes in and changes the wallpaper. He comes in and ruins a deal instead.
And it was definitely a brave call to make, I think.
Yeah. Oh
my God.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I have.
No!
Yes.
No.
My wheels are still intact. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. Nah, it's okay. Carry on.
Oh, I'm worried. No, we're okay. Oh, no, we're not. That was scary. We nearly both had two cars out then. I had Ericsson and me side by side into Eau Rouge, and it didn't really work out very well. Okay. You defend it like that, Ericsson.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's not giving you an easy ride there, is he? But yeah, so I see you in the battle. Yeah. I will take up the baton. So,
yeah,
the Sauber tie up with Ferrari and the Alfa Romeo brand, that made a lot of sense because Haas have always been. They've been happy to take Ferrari technical input, but they've been very reluctant to allow Ferrari to pull any political strings or decide anything to do with the drivers that they field.
Yep.
I sort of think, well, while it's beneficial, no doubt, to have the money and whatnot coming in from Ferrari by tying up with the Maserati deal, it sort of implies that you're going to have to give up some of that control you've very zealously defended. And I would see that rather than being positive for the team, I see it more as a sign of Gene Haas being fed up already with Formula One, because the more control he gives up, the more it says to me that he's really not bothered. He just wants to get up and be competitive, and that's not a healthy attitude. We saw that with Tony Fernandez. I mean, he took a different tack. Instead he said, "Well, I'm going to up the budget, and you deliver or else."
What's your fuel?
But it's the same sort of logic.
Yeah.
What is your fuel, Simon?
My fuel is fine. I've got plenty. I mean, I'm just in rich free, burning through stuff whilst I'm in clear air. What was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, I feel like we need to like get out a clock, a bit like Doomsday for Donald Trump, but just for Gene Haas, and do it like the Haas watch, because it does feel a little bit like a ticking time bomb. And it's interesting that you make the comparison to Tony Fernandez, because I think that's spot on, actually. Because there's going to be a time where Gene Haas will just go, do you know what? This is... And I wouldn't be surprised if he follows the same tact, actually, and just goes, here it is, I'm giving you an extra 25 million, do it or else we're out. And that kind of being like their final straw. And then Grosjean going, but my cookbook, and then it just all going a bit horribly wrong, and then that'll be out the door. So yeah, it's a fascinating unravelling that may occur. I hope it doesn't.
I see it going one of two ways, really. Because either he'll he'll go all in on the course he's on now and say, we're not taking drivers other people tell us to take, we're not a developmental team, and we're not going to take paid drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think, okay, fine, do what you got to do. But if the results don't come, then he's still spending huge amounts of money, and he'll do a Tony Fernandez and leave. The other way is that he'll take the money, fall into that developmental position that he's been so keen to avoid, and get fed up by, via stagnation, feeling that he can't take the team forward and that he doesn't really have control of his own entity anymore. I mean, I get the feeling that this is a sort of deal that could be struck and lauded and everyone be quite happy about it up until the moment Ferrari tell him how to vote.
Yeah.
And at that moment, either he'll vote the way they say but be furious about it, or he won't vote the way they say and relationships will break down. The Haas relationship with Ferrari was already presumed to be degrading somewhat, and it was hard to read the Alfa Romeo deal as either Ferrari moving more towards Sauber or Sauber's change of leadership pushing them back in the direction where they were willing to bend to Ferrari's will again a little bit.
Yeah.
One of those things happened. It's a little bit unclear which, but I don't know. I just don't think Haas are long for the sport. I really, really don't. But anyway, speaking of being not long for the sport, something else we were talking about pre-show, the Amazon, I believe it's on Amazon or Netflix, the documentary about McLaren.
Ah, yes.
Where Autosport were covering the series, and were talking about how in some episodes they were quite candid about their fears that Fernando Alonso would leave the team, right? Which is a reasonable concern, but then tacked on and the following fears that the team would collapse. And you think, what? Fernando leaving would undoubtedly be a bad thing for them, but to suggest the team would collapse, to me, is insane.
No driver is... The only driver that was ever capable of collapsing a team was Pedro Diniz with 40. He doesn't bring the sponsorship. None of the sponsors for McLaren are there because of Alonso. He actually drains the money. He doesn't bring it in. I find that out. I find that as... I wonder if that's like a hyperbole to try and get people to sign up for Amazon Prime so that they watch the thing.
Possibly, or it could be something, they seem to be bending over backwards to sweeten things with Fernando, to the point that his very real passion for driving any car except his McLaren is kind of rewarded and promoted. Like, I saw McLaren put out a tweet earlier, talking quite positive terms about him signing for Toyota, and you think, how far have you fallen, guys? How far have you fallen? We've just been able to wax lyrical for some considerable length of time about the rich depth of talent that's both in the sport already and knocking on the door. And I think to suggest that Fernando leaving McLaren, as undoubtable a loss as it would be, it would not collapse the team. It just would not. And I think what you probably see is if they hadn't have put Lando Norris in the car, they would have taken someone off the scrap heap for a season.
Yeah.
Or they'd have thrown a lot of money at Rosberg to come out of retirement for a year.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
It just doesn't seem reasonable to me to conflate those two things, Still, though, it is going to be a very interesting year for McLaren in particular, because you have to say that, Fernando's time's ticking anyway, regardless of how it goes.
How long do you think he's got?
I don't think long. And I think that's really nothing to do with McLaren. I think it's entirely to do with him. I mean, obviously he's not getting any younger, but I mean, what is he now? 37?
So I genuinely don't know, actually, but because he then becomes the oldest person when Raikkonen
Till
goes.
2021.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, predictions in the chat. Chuck them in.
Yeah. I think that's quite optimistic, but I'm pleased someone's optimistic about it. I think if McLaren are not coming out on top from time to time of this presumed new battle between the Works Renault team, Red Bull, and themselves, and it's entirely possible. I mean, nothing's a given. Or the Renault doesn't have the reliability. I think he'll walk quite soon.
I think he expects them to be ahead of Renault, but behind or matching Red Bull. And if they aren't matching and beating Red Bull at the end of this year, I think he'll be gone either for 2019 or
contending
beyond.
for podiums in the first half of the season, that will be his last in F1. Are not contending for podiums.
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty reasonable assessment, actually. I can't see who said it, but I agree.
David.
Just the like what you saw with him dabbling in in IndyCar and in endurance racing and in Daytona. You can see he's already priming his next steps. And
oh yeah,
McLaren will always make the argument saying, well, we've had a rough few
He has a
seasons.
multi-year deal.
no one will talk
but
about
he's
how
got-
long that deal is, though, do they?
Yeah, and actually, if you read the statement where they announced that multi-year deal, you'll see that they contradict themselves. Because Zach Brown said, well, Fernando was willing to sign a multi-year deal, but he wanted to keep his options open for next year,
Yeah.
meaning
So,
2019. So
Deals
what
in sports mean nothing once one party gets unsettled enough.
exactly? And I think what Zach Brown was alluding to there is that they theoretically have him on a multi-year deal, but there's probably a performance clause in there for the team, and that Fernando can get out if the team don't deliver. Because what I was going to say was, it looks to me very much like he's starting to realise that I could go to another series and be competitive,
Yeah.
but what I can't do is dip my toe in that series and be competitive.
Yeah.
I think particularly his when he ran the Andretti car at in IndyCar, what that showed is that there are places for him to go where he can be in a position to challenge again, but he can't do that if he's only having one race a year. And that was a hell of a scrap.
That
You got
wasn't
into
meant
that?
to happen.
And then obviously Daytona has kind of shown that again. I mean, he was never going to do well in that car, as you correctly pointed out, but it shows that people are willing to take him on there, and perhaps he could get a seat where he could win. And the fact that he signed on for World Endurance for multiple races,
Yeah.
I think that says a lot, because he's realising now that I can't just turn up and do one event and win, because it's a coin toss for a single event, right? Especially if it's your first one. I mean, it's not that he's not talented enough to win, and he could have won at Indy potentially. It's not like the car was garbage.
It's also about, I think, from a PR perspective, how many times can you turn up for a one-off race and everyone go, wow, you've done it once or twice now. Are you going to get diminishing returns, I think, from PR perspective?
Well, I mean, if he keeps not really delivering, and I know you can say that Indy kind of did deliver and had bad luck, and that's true. But still, I mean, people will remember who won the race more, I think, than anything else. And I think what you can see here is him thinking, well, I am not going to be back into a championship-winning car anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think also as well, it's really smart marketing from a McLaren point of view, and maybe from an Alonso point of view as well, in that if F1 is going away from free-to-air stuff, and people are worried about electric versus non-electric formula and stuff like that, that they're already casting their net out wider to kind of think, right, well, if F1 has a horrific downturn of fortunes, where else can we still have success stories and things like that? Because F1's increasingly looking, to me, almost like it's its own like little mini niche in motorsport. It's still the pinnacle, but it's getting increasingly more and more niche based because of this social problem.
I know what you mean. That pedestal is getting narrower and narrower, and eventually it's going to collapse.
Yeah. So where do you go and trade on that?
Were you about to be lapped by that Mercedes, by the way, or is that racing?
No, that's position.
Are you high up, or is he far down?
He's far down. He's what took me off for a front wing first time round. So we both.
Oh, it's yeah.
So that's Brotas.
I just realised I can press triangle and see which position you're in.
Yeah, use the new play around with the TV standing graphics.
I keep turning it off so I can get handsome. Have you just lost part of your wing?
Nope, thank Christ.
Oh.
I didn't hit it, but I was damn well close. What's Verline still doing out on softs? Weirdo.
I'm glad you're flying the flag for competence this week.
Only just.
We can't have both of us bidding it. It's fine if one of us bins it.
That'll be full house.
No, I agree. And actually, I wanted to ask you if you've seen much of WEC.
I have not, actually, if I'm honest. I've always been traditionally essentially, I follow Tin Tops. Oh, what was that? Felipe Baby. Mwah. So no, I follow open-wheeled cockpit, or open cockpits as it is now, Halo, lols, and Tin Tops. And like supercar type stuff. So endurance has always been kind of the bit that I've never bothered with, just because I always feel like I would want to watch the whole thing.
Well, I get your point. I do, but go and watch it because it's phenomenal. Like genuinely, really, really entertaining to watch. The cars look fantastic. Because Formula One's always been my thing.
Yep.
I had a stint with World Rally in the 90s, and I was a big fan of rallying, but Formula One's always been my jam, right? And touring cars are cool as well, but I felt the same way about endurance, right? Because it always felt to me they were neither one thing or the other, because they are a prototype, but they're not open wheel, and they look kind of heavy and bulky, and you think, I know it's very stupid to make a supposition before actually watching a race, but I always felt like they weren't going to be particularly entertaining, and I thought they were a bit too big and bulky to really fly around in a way that would be entertaining. But let me tell you, they look seriously fast on screen, and the quality of racing is really good in WEC. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where Fernando ends up, actually, because I think he'll probably flourish there. Obviously they need to address the problem with LMP1, because that's wider endurance racing as well, because there's little incentives for teams really to be involved in LMP1 when LMP2 is so much cheaper to compete in, and very entertaining. So they're probably going to rework the formula, but still, they've got a lot of stuff right, and it's very, very watchable. And I think at some point you and I should do a multidisciplinary special where we do a bit of rally and we do a bit of endurance racing, and try our hand at something else, since we've been doing Formula One for 7 years.
Yeah. That'll be fun.
Anyway, I honestly think that's where we could end up with him going. How many laps have we got left? Can't be many.
7.
Then I think it's time to move on to the bigger news topic, which is Daniel Ricciardo talking about the challenge he faces this year in deciding how to approach the next phase of his career.
Yeah.
Now he's saying, it's really a make or break decision, and I couldn't agree more. I don't know if there's a good answer to this question for him.
It's a very difficult one, isn't it? Because Red Bull have clearly got on the Max wagon, and they aren't getting off it anytime soon, because he's signed up for multiple years, and they've made it quite clear that he is their number one chum, as have the media, I think, to be fair. And I don't know where else he can go.
No, I mean, the rumor is, of course, that he's being lined up to replace Bottas. But I don't think that's necessarily a good move for two reasons.
No.
The first one being that I think we're about to see Mercedes enter a descendancy. I don't think they can maintain the level of dominance they've had because no team's been able to ever. And I also sort of feel that with someone like Ocon gunning for your seat, your lifespan's probably relatively short anyway, but also it's going to be a very high pressure position. Now, of course, that's how it should be in Formula One. But I honestly think that if things happened the way that historically they have happened and probably should happen, really it should be him replacing Raikkonen at Ferrari.
If Vettel doesn't have the clause of never being teammates with him again.
That's the rumour, right? That he has a clause preventing them being teammates again. But that's the logical... Like, if you look at the way it's developed down the years, you know, Ricciardo's now entered that period of being a mature driver. That's when Ferrari normally come for you, right? They never take young drivers.
Yeah.
And if you look at the candidates for replacing Raikkonen, I mean, a lot of people are throwing around Leclerc, which would be a very out of character would be very out of character for Ferrari.
Yes.
Because they never take drivers younger than 30 usually, or like 28. But I could see them doing it. Setting that aside for a moment, really you're looking at Perez as an option. He was supposed to be the heir apparent for a while. Grosjean, of course, was supposed to be the heir apparent. That's why he moved to Haas, because that was supposed to be the door into Ferrari, and it hasn't really panned out. But for my money, Ricciardo is sort of the obvious, the so obvious it probably won't happen choice.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would certainly say if he stays at Red Bull, he's either committing to a Mark Webber career of what could have been, or he's going to be constantly in conflict with team management in the same way, to some extent, Rosberg was. In fact, probably worse. Rosberg didn't do so badly because even though the team, you could argue, somewhat favoured Lewis, or at least expected him to outperform Nico more often than not, they did at least maintain parity to some extent and allowed them to race. Whereas Red Bull are a bit more slippery in that regard, where they did it with Webber, right? They say we don't have a number 2 driver, but it's very clear from their actions that they do.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's about to happen to him now. He's going to be the next victim of that Red Bull machine. And normally you see it work at its most vicious at Toro Rosso, but people should never forget that the mothership actually is equally devious. You know, they've been pretty quick to cast Kvyat out. I don't think staying at Red Bull is a realistic option for him unless he wants a mediocre career, being the next Barrichello or the next Irvine, for example. And I think he's capable of so much more than that.
Oh, yeah.
Likewise, I think going to Mercedes could be good as a 1-year arrangement, going head-to-head with Lewis and hopefully coming out comparable to him. That could help raise his stock quite a bit. But really, once those 3 doors have been knocked out, you don't really have a lot of room for manoeuvre.
No, and he's gone on record to say he doesn't want a 1-year deal anywhere as well.
Yeah, and it's not like, you know, previously when McLaren were competitive, you could argue that that was always a door he could knock on. But even if Alonso were to step aside, they'll just stick Norris in there. I wouldn't be surprised. You could argue that maybe a door opens at Renault.
I don't see that. That doesn't feel like a fit. I don't know why.
It doesn't feel like a fit, but I'd argue it's probably the best place for him to go, given that it's a works-back team that is historically competitive and usually gets back to the front. I imagine, because Renault is actually a team that they don't have a really, 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 really obvious hot prospect tapping on the door right now.
No. But
And
then I
Hulkenberg's
guess
gonna...
they don't need to, so long as they keep hold of signs. That's kind of the big question there.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think it's bizarre merry-go-round, right? Because if Ricardo doesn't re-sign with Red Bull, then they will recall signs. 100%.
That would be the weirdest swap, though, of Red Bull drivers ever.
And then the door is open for Ricardo to go to Renault, and that would actually be. I think that the more I say it, the more I think that would be a good place for him to go, because historically we know that they probably will get there eventually, and Hulkenberg will retire before Ricardo.
Yep.
So assuming he can maintain his level of performance, even if a young driver does come along, Hulkenberg's about to enter the second year of a 3-year deal. It'd be Hulkenberg who was bumped to make way for the fresh talent, not Ricardo. The more I talk about it, the more I think it makes sense, actually, in a really bizarre way.
I would like to see Sainz and Verstappen at each other's throats at Red Bull, just from a curiosity perspective, because Sainz, from the press perspective and pundit perspective, was no way near given his dues when they were at Toro Rosso together. And I know we both kind of advocate Carlos Sainz was just as good as Verstappen and quite often faster.
It's not just opinion, the stats are very clear on it. Like the years they were together at Toro Rosso, if you take aside reliability problems, the differential between them, performance-wise, across the season was minuscule.
Yeah.
Absolutely minuscule. So small, you could basically say statistically it doesn't exist. So I'd like to see it too, but again, you're going to be in the same problem that you are with Ricardo, where you have a driver who's... it's hard to say if Ricardo can match Verstappen, actually. I think the season before last, I would say Ricardo was the better driver purely because he had the racecraft, but I have to say I've been very, very impressed by what little we saw of Verstappen this season, because he seemed to have a much leveler head on his shoulders, and he seemed to be finding the racecraft. Because he always had the pace. Like, no one would say he wasn't fast or exciting. It's that he was...
Oh, no.
He was too aggressive and too impatient. And he was trying to win races when, if he just paused for a moment, the race would come to him organically. And that's why Ricardo got the better of him a few times. Whereas this year, particularly in qualifying, it's been Verstappen all the way. And I think that's only going to continue. And then you get into the messy territory of, well, is Sainz better than Ricardo? And I actually find that really hard to call. I actually find it really hard to call. My gut would say Ricardo is superior, but that's just because I really like Ricardo.
Yeah.
If it comes down to actual ability to deliver, you know, they both have bad days. I'd say there's probably a cigarette paper between them, perhaps. And somehow in my mind, given how things panned out last year, where Ricardo didn't really seem to be with it, I'm starting to think that Sainz would be better equipped to take the fight to Verstappen, although I suspect he still wouldn't be allowed to. And I think whoever inhabits that Red Bull seat, they're in a cursed position.
Yeah.
Because they're only ever going to be picking up the races that Max cannot win.
It does feel like a poisoned chalice in a way, like it used to be if you was teammate to Michael back in the day. And I guess you could kind of...
Yeah, you probably have the best car on the grid, but you can't really wield it.
Yeah, exactly. I'll throw this one to you then. Lewis Hamilton gets a #1 single, decides that he's going to be a pop diva. He goes. Bottas returns to Williams. 2 seats open at Mercedes. Ocon and Ricciardo?
Oh, that is tantalising. I can't get away from the fact that I genuinely believe Ricciardo to Mercedes is a bad move for Ricciardo. I just think Mercedes have done too well for too long that it has to be coming to an end, one way or another.
Yeah, just natural.
Something will conspire something will conspire to ruin their competitiveness.
Lewis's pop career.
But well, I mean, to be honest, like whether he gets a number one single or the Mercedes becomes uncompetitive, they both have the same end result because Lewis will only stay there as long as they're capable of winning races.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no doubt about that. As soon as Mercedes stops winning, he'll probably retire. I don't think he'll even bother trying to get himself into another competitive team. I just don't think he cares enough. I don't know. I sort of feel that if were that to happen, and Lewis was out of the picture completely, I do sort of wonder if that could be what tempts Rosberg back. Because I think people forget how young Rosberg is actually to be retired.
I don't think he wants to come back.
No, I don't think he does either, but I think if you offered him enough money and you blew enough sunshine up his arse and you made it very clear, like, we need you, I think he might do it because part of me thought when you posed that question that I'd say, well, they'd probably take Ocon and then, like, some hot young talent. But at the same time, I think in their position, and particularly if they feel their grip on dominance is starting to slip, I do think actually they'll want an established driver with many years under his belt just for the developmental benefits that brings. Which I suppose you could argue Ricciardo fills that role, but
yeah.
I just, for some reason, they seem like such a bad match that I can't imagine Ricciardo signing that deal. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I, in my mind, try and picture Ricciardo in Mercedes overalls, I can't see it.
No, I know what you mean. It does, because it does feel unlikely, but it's just, if every other door is shut, I could picture him more in Ferrari overalls, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. I could picture him more in Ferrari. It's like I could always picture Vettel in Ferrari overalls, but I couldn't see him at McLaren.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that sense comes from, but
I think it's probably a personality thing as well, as much as anything else, and like and temperament. Oh shit! Bottas is going to get me on the last lap.
Yeah, possibly, very, very possibly. But I don't think Ricciardo's understating it when he says it is a make or break decision, because it really is. I just think it's, the more I think about it, it's becoming a break decision, unless.
There's only 1 lap of fuel remaining.
I mean, it's difficult because I'd say it's smarter to play the long game and to not move to a team that's currently dominating, but one that's got a really good chance of coming up the field. And I think out of all of them, you'd have to point to McLaren or Renault as the teams most likely to make some big stride forward in the next sort of 3 to 5 years. But the doors seem to be closed at McLaren, and I think if you miss this driver carousel chance to enter Renault, I think those doors will be closed too.
Oh yeah.
And the question is, do you want to move to Mercedes for the short-term boost to your reputation and the boost to your win count, or do you want to move to Renault and risk looking like an average driver for a few years, but then ultimately reap the benefits? And it's a difficult one because drivers get such short careers these days. What's up?
I've got a puncture.
No,
Bottas. No.
Your point.
My single point. I want my point. I did think it would be tight. I didn't think it would be that tight. Come on.
You're driving very well for a man with a puncture.
Oh, no. Let's get him.
Mate, I'm devastated for you. Genuinely, that's heartbreaking. Oh, the season was going far too well. I've won races, you've won races. It's not normal.
I'm going to blame us because before we went live, we went, this has all gone a bit well. We're almost winning a bit too much, and now look at it.
Because we were talking, you're punching above your weight in career mode on expert difficulty. I started a new career mode at Sauber with increased difficulty and finished 4th in the first race. I think it's all been going a bit too well for us. And I think, yeah, this is us being reminded that this is the Failcast, and
Get
failure
back in
is
your
part of
place.
the remit.
Yeah.
But yeah, to close out, I'm even more convinced now. I've been talking about it for 5 minutes. I think if I were him, I'd risk it at Renault.
Nah, I wouldn't.
Have you got 2 punctures?
No, just one. One was on
yeah.
86% on the other one, though.
What could have been? Yeah, it just strikes me as a bit of pain in the short term for potential long-term gain. But also, it's really hard to read because logic would say that Force India are in an ascendancy. Because, you know, fourth, second year in a row, and this year they've gained on the teams ahead. And they've done that with the smallest budget in Formula One.
Yeah.
Even smaller than Sauber's. You'd sort of say, well, if this was the 90s or whatever, that would be your Jordan or your Benetton.
Yeah.
A team that's in the ascendancy and may or may not win, but it could.
And that would be desired, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think they'll find themselves with a work steal, and I think Big Ron was right. You need work steals to win. I really do believe that. Because, you know, even when Red Bull winning their championships, they were the de facto preferred Renault team. You know, even because Lotus Renault was actually just Lotus. So they were, in essence, the works supported outfit when they were winning. I really don't see customer-powered teams winning. That's why I was a bit annoyed that McLaren moved away from Honda, even though it kind of makes sense in the short term.
Yeah.
It smacks of the Williams scenario, right, where you fall out of winning ways and then you start becoming an engine customer, and then that's it. Your days of winning championships are over. Yep. Like, I honestly don't think Williams will bounce back to that. I think the best they can do is sort of a Force India, right, pick up fourth. And I really didn't want to see McLaren go the same way. But yeah, there we go. Has been the Belgian Grand Prix.
It has.
And our run of bad results in Spa, particularly for me, continues. I did say before I went live that this setup was very, very slippery, but I don't remember it being this slippery in career mode. Honestly, no traction anywhere. And you know me, I love riding out on the curbs. I am a curb rider by nature. And that's what totally got me in qualifying. And I thought I'd recovered it, but sometimes you just overcompensate a little bit, and that goes. And then, obviously, I've been dicing with death with every pit entrance since we started this episode. And again, that's not something I struggled with in career mode, but I think it's because I took a different line. I took a very weird line in, and I clipped the barrier on my way in, but I didn't lose my wheels. And there was like a pause before it told me I was retired, and I thought I got away with it. I thought I just lost my end plate, but apparently I must have broken the suspension. But I
wonder if there was some weird lag in there.
Yeah, the physics didn't show the wheel being dislodged. Either way, disappointing result. But overall, it's been a pleasant chatteroo. We've got through all the news.
It has. And also, can I just note, you got the fastest lap of the race. I was the second fastest. So we could have been up there doing very well if it had stayed dry. I was awful in the wet. Yeah.
Oh, no, 2/10.
2/10.
Not including you, of course.
No, I'm 2/10.
Oh, you are, yeah. Oh, well, never mind. What could have been? Thank you very much. I'll take it. It's a small victory, but it's a victory nevertheless. Big thank you and much love to everyone who joined us. It's a pleasure to have you here and have your views and opinions and whatnot.
Yes, thank you everyone. Chimp Chopper Sony Boy, Rax2, David M, James Angley, some of our regulars here, Bad Nova, Mr. Rhino himself, and we were up to about 10 at one point. So going right.
Smashing. Midweek might actually work better for people, huh?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? But yeah,
But
thank you very
nevertheless,
much.
we'll be back in a week and a half.
Yeah, and hopefully there'll be some juicy F1 news that's going
Later.
on without drama. Yeah, thank you very much for joining, everyone. Take care.
Yeah. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for being with us.
Bye.
Bye.